Remember, I'll be watching for you on the big screen.
Okay, Irene. Won't that be the day?
I had a dream about this place.
Oh boy.
Yeah!
All right.
Held the tab.
Dustin's been struggling with the tab lately.
Dude, the fucking tabs
It's a whole
are
thing.
so dumb.
Welcome to Movie Boners.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you for listening. If this is your first time or if you're a return visitor, we appreciate you. Ooh, yeah? Dustin's got a good beer, sounds like.
That is so good.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Tell me
Oh my god.
Tell me about the beer you just opened.
Okay. So I'm drinking a beer called Frostbite. It's a cryo hopped IPA from Spindle Tap Brewery somewhere here in Texas, in Houston, Texas. Oh man, that is so yummy.
Yeah? Interesting.
It's been I've enjoyed a lot of beer. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed a lot of beer down here in Texas. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've responded to a beer like I just did with this one, but I think I may have just found a new favorite.
Wow.
Oh man.
That's crazy. I have seen, where did I see? Somebody that I know around here has a cryo IPA. And I don't know what that means really, but I assume it has to do with why you like it.
I don't know either, but I know this is a happy little beer. Oh man.
Okay, Bob Ross. My beer, I chose the most perfect beer to match today's episode.
Is it just a giant what the fuck?
No, it's a perfect connection, perfect analogy for today's episode. It's actually a limited release from Odell's Brewing called Positive Latitude, and it's a passion fruit IPA. It's a little bit fruity. You probably won't like it. It's an imperial IPA rather, but it's called Positive Latitude.
All right.
You know how that connects?
I'm waiting for you to tell us.
It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. However you want it to connect, whatever it means, it's up to you. There's no actual answers.
I knew it was going to be a bullshit thing. Bullshit. I knew you were just pulling that out.
It's as bullshit as David Lynch's, but that's a separate topic. Okay, before we get into it, thank you to our
Wandering Lions.
To our sponsors, Wandering Lion Studios. They provide our beer for us. Go to wanderinglinstudios.biz. They are a film studio that will work on a project. If you are a young, aspiring actress who wants to make it big, definitely Wandering Lion Studios can help you out with that. And their social media is on point. Go to Instagram or Facebook and find Wandering Lion Studios because I don't know if you submitted a response for their latest trivia.
Not yet. This question. Okay. Okay. I got real cocky with how I got the last week's trivia question correct. And they were pretty upset with me getting that correct. And I rubbed it in their face. I even put a thing on social media of the Joker smiling. And I just captioned it when you get the movie trivia, right? And I tagged them. So I feel like I trolled them pretty.
Do you feel like this week's trivia is targeted at you specifically?
Yeah, I feel attacked, and I feel like their clues were horseshit. And I feel like one of them is a red herring just put out there to throw me off. And it is really bothering me.
I don't have any idea what the movie is, but I do have one piece of information that may help you so we can work as a team together.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So they used the wrestler, and I'm assuming this is your piece.
It is the wrestler they mentioned. I'm blanking on his name right now, but they said something to do with the movie. The main character or a character has a stomach tattoo, the same as this wrestler. That wrestler, a Hawaiian guy, is the grandfather of one Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. No joke.
Ooh.
So I don't know if there is a connection. I don't know if Dwayne Johnson's in the movie they're talking about, but that's Dwayne "The Rock's" granddaddy.
That's pretty cool. But see, that's why I feel cool. But see, that's why I feel like irrelevant to being Dwayne Johnson. And it's bothering me.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I'm very looking forward to Monday
to figure out what it is. Because I have no idea. I even sent them a message. I responded to their story with the thing. I was like, this is Jake. I have no idea I'm not even going to try to guess. I'm going to let Dustin guess. But I do know this fun little detail, and that's fun. No, so maybe that means it is connected. Or maybe it means it's not. Maybe it means they don't like me. I don't know what it means. Anyway, we appreciate you wondering why. Thank you for being our sponsors. Oh,
yep. Thank you, guys. Speaking of,
I was going to tell you.
I'm going to send
he sent
David
me a text too, actually.
Text.
And he had a slight message for you. He was listening to our black and white episode, and he said it was kind of bullshit for you to have Schindler's List at number 7. and I said, by the time you're listening to this, you've probably already heard that I've never seen Schindler's List, so you're probably more disappointed in me. It's still true. I've never seen Schindler's List. Don't at me.
Yeah, I got out of the movie, and as soon as I turned my phone off of airplane mode, which, by the way, folks,
those M&M commercials are
turn
not
your
just
fucking phone off during the movie. Back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
Oh my god, they are obnoxious though. I take my phone out of airplane, and my phone just explodes.
Yeah,
and one of them was from you. Being like, hey, we good to go? And I'm like, no, I'm just like, the movie just ended. And then one of them was, from David at Wandering. And I felt attacked. And then I thought, nope, my show, my rules. I do what I want. Like, and that's exactly what I just texted him. Yep.
You're running out of time.
Hopefully I have an answer for the fucking trivia this week.
Yeah.
I am. And it's bothering me.
We're not here to talk about the trivia. We could take guesses.
So what are we
all day,
talking about today, Jake?
We had another fan request, I believe. It didn't come to me, but you mentioned that this happened. Someone requested we watch the movie Mulholland Drive, film written and directed by David Lynch from 2001. I've heard of it. You've heard of it. Everybody's heard of it. Weird thing, we've never seen it. I've never seen it. You've never seen it. Which is kind of, I was going to say this is the first time that's happened, but that happened with Akira, like, very recently.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I really, I really like that. Like, we've had two where neither of us have seen it.
It's honestly rare. Like,
we're able to have
seen
like
a lot of
fresh
movies.
Pair of eyes on it.
When we do have one that we've never seen, the other one has seen it, so we kind of have a balance. So to find one we've both never seen is not that easy to do.
Yeah. So this was recommended to me. Mm-hmm. Actually, when I went back home to Colorado, I got this recommendation. So my only David Lynch.
Okay. How much
stuff is I watched Twin Peaks.
How much of it did you see
on Netflix during quarantine? I didn't watch the what they do the conclusion on Showtime or whatever it was that they did. I didn't finish that, or I didn't even watch that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird you say that, because
but I watched Twin Peaks
realized
during quarantine.
I haven't really watched any David Lynch stuff. I tried to watch Twin Peaks, didn't really grab me. I've never seen. I meant to see Elephant Man, meant to see Dune, never seen Blue Velvet. Like, I really haven't seen hardly any of his stuff.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Elephant Man, but I don't remember too much.
I might have seen Eraserhead,
but I know I saw it.
I might have seen Eraserhead, but I don't really remember.
Never saw Blue Velvet. I know I've never. So yeah, it sounds like we're both. Not only have we never seen Mulholland Drive, but neither of us have ever really.
Which was so weird to me. Like, I started
David
Mulholland
Lynch's
Drive
work,
and what? Okay.
Real quick,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. When you started Mulholland Drive,
Yes.
did you think you were watching?
I
the
literally
wrong
did,
movie?
and that's when I made the post on our
Okay,
Instagram
thank you.
of the
Thank
opening
you.
of that dance number, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I got like this weird alternate universe thing. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I was like, no way is this the real movie, and
I
that's
was
what
very
made me stop
confused. I
it
was
and
like,
go
wait a
and look at
minute.
David Lynch's stuff, and I was like. Have I seen anything that you've made? Like, because I was like, obviously, this movie is weird. We're going to get into it. This movie is weird. And I was like, is it weird because all of his stuff is weird? Or is it weird because this movie is specific? And then I realized I'd never really seen anything he's made. And I've heard Twin Peaks is weird, so I don't really know. The
Twin Peaks was weird.
The other weird thing, as I was going
very
through his
strange
filmography, after Mulholland Drive, he's made almost no features. He may have made one feature film. The rest are all shorts and documentaries.
Dude, shorts, documentaries, and music videos.
And
I was like,
one of the
what
most,
is going on with
the
this
highest
guy's
on the list
career?
things was this show that had 151 episodes. I was like, damn, that's a lot of episodes. So I was like, what is that? I clicked on it. It's called Weather Report. You know what it is? It's David Lynch. It's David Lynch in his house reading the weather report for Los Angeles every day. What are you doing, David Lynch? So this is a weird guy.
What the fuck?
The headline is this is a weird guy making weird movies that I apparently should watch more of or watch less of. I don't know. That's honestly the hardest part. This may be the hardest movie that we've ever had to prepare for because I took the most notes for this movie. And I probably have the least planned things to actually say because I was just writing things down so I didn't forget them, and because I need you or the audience or somebody to help me find answers. So maybe this will be like a workshop session where we find answers together. I don't really know.
Really, you and I are kind of on the same page with a lot of things. When I finished Mulholland Drive, I hit the IMDb comment board hard. And normally I avoid comment areas. Like, I purposely don't go to comment sections because it's just lack of constructive things to say. But I hit this comment section heavy. So I was like, what fuck did I miss here? What? Like, I think I got the basic idea, but there are several parts in this movie I was like, what the and what's the point? Why? Oh, I feel gross.
Yeah.
There were a couple parts I felt like I feel gross. And I get that's probably on purpose. It has to be on purpose. I'll correct that. I know it was on purpose because of some of the things that I was reading about Mulholland Drive. I was like, oh, okay, it makes more sense. We should also, like we always have to do with our deep dives,
and
we're going to spoil the shit out of this movie. You can't really talk about the last act without...
I don't know that you can talk about anything without
everything
talking about the last act. I feel like... and that's part of the reason I kind of started going all over the internet too, because I didn't know the basic answer to was the movie I just watched good or not. I honestly don't know. I don't know because I don't understand it. And so sometimes I'm like, it might be good if I understood what's going on, but I don't understand it. So it could be crap. I don't know. So I was trying to figure out just general consensus. Do people like this? And I still don't really know, but I do think that it's important to, with the context of the ending, because a lot of shit happens at the ending. It does.
It feels like a fucking.
So I watched this movie twice this week,
end.
and I felt like that was the bare minimum. Because after you see the end, you have to watch it again because that kind of changes some things about the beginning. I think you need to have that a little bit of context. But I started late. I was like, this is going to be great.
Yep.
We kind of have a quieter week, a week off, only one movie to watch. I'm going to enjoy my light homework week and I'll start late. And then I saw this movie and I was like, oh shit, I am totally fucked. I need to watch this movie like about a dozen more times before I have any idea what's going on.
So this is why you and I have this show, Jake. This is why we're such good friends, Jake. Because for any newbie to the show, we try to hold back any opinions or whatever kind of general thought we have of like the group of movies or the single deep dive. We'll try to hold all of that so we can unload it all on each other.
What the fuck is this?
During the show. Yeah. I too started so late because I was like, man, we're coming off of a few weeks of watching like tons of movies. It's like one movie this week. I can go the whole week, watch whatever else I want. I can relax. I can like do some stuff around the house, whatever. So I watched it Thursday before going and having dinner with my daughter. So like Thursday afternoon. And when it ended, I just kind of sat there for a minute and was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I should probably watch this like 4 more times. And I think I'll only have enough to watch it 1 more time. But then I fell asleep while I was watching it the second time because it was really late. I was really tired. And so I've only watched it like, I'm going to say 1.25 times. And so I feel very lost. I think I understand the basic gist of it. I do have some thoughts because the movie does something that we have talked about this sort of thing in a couple episodes, previous episodes, like a while back. We'll get into that, but I was like, wow, I didn't realize that this movie was another one that followed this trend. Okay. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I like you. I can't tell you if I liked it or not. I can't. I have no answer to that.
The good
Maybe
news
we'll
is
figure something out by the end of this episode.
So, yeah.
I'm so glad you did. I was trying to write down notes, and the very first note that I wrote is literally, what the fuck is this? And I meant to answer it to myself and then just moved on.
So how thrown off were you by the editing? Because that was the first thing that threw me off watching it.
Okay. So I had a lot of thoughts while I was watching this movie. But the prominent one that continuously just kept rerunning through my head, this movie to me felt like it belonged in the Twin Peaks world. It felt to me like it was a part of Twin Peaks. 100% it felt that way to me. The way that it's edited, the way it's filmed. Twin Peaks doesn't have quite the extensive nudity, but which that was like a what the fuck? You're gonna hear that a lot because that was such a prominent thought. Okay, I'm sorry. So I kept thinking, like, is this a part of Twin Peaks? Did they make like a Twin Peaks spin-off movie? And I kept telling myself, like, that was one of my notes was Twin Peaks. Fun note about the movie.
Okay.
That I can actually answer my Twin Peaks conundrum, and I'm sure David Lynch fans out there are probably already saying this. This was supposed to be a Twin Peaks spinoff, but not a movie. It was supposed to be a whole new series. It was supposed to be a spinoff from Twin Peaks, but ABC got super cold feet about it, did not like it, and decided not to go through with it. So Studio Canal, the production company, gave David Lynch a few extra $1 million to finish it off as a film. So film some extra sequences, rewrite the ending,
Okay.
and turn it into a movie. And when I read that, I was like, when I read that, having watched Twin Peaks, I will say that Mulholland Drive kind of went up a notch in my book because it felt like it just seamlessly fit into the Twin Peaks world. So I know you haven't really watched Twin Peaks. Mulholland Drive is actually...
So if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, you would be a fan of this movie.
Like,
okay.
I feel like you would be
I did see
pretty
that
big fan
it was
of Mulholland
supposed to
Drive.
be like his return to
But
TV, and it was originally supposed to be a TV series and was rejected. But I didn't know the Twin Peaks connection.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I realized all that, the style of editing that was in it kind of made more sense, but the editing is so weird and it throws you off so much. And there's so many scenes in this movie where I was like, wait, why was that in here?
There is so much
like,
of that.
Wait, what happened to that?
I was so like, I was trying to pay attention. I was trying to pay attention to the movie like any good movie goer does. And things would happen on screen, and the editing was so jarring to me because it would like just jump to this other thing, or it would go from like this relatively normal scene, hard cut to this very loud teenagers driving through this, like speeding through the mountains thing. And it just went back and forth so much that I was like, this feels awkward. I don't really know like how it's just not transitioning. It's just kind of a weird thing going on. And so I didn't really get it. And then, the opening dance number with all these like cut out people on a green screen or really a purple screen overlaid on top of each other, just dancing for no reason before the credits, before anything. That was so weird.
I seriously, like, I had to pause the movie. So I watched it on Prime. I had to pause it and like look at, okay, this is Mulholland Drive. It says Naomi Watts is in this movie. Okay, it's over 2 hours long. Yeah, everything says Mulholland Drive. What the hell is this opening? And like hit play again, thinking like, what is going on? And then Naomi Watts shows up and she's like,
like
in a
washed
very
out
odd
kind of by light
way, like washed out, and just it looks like it looked like early days of Photoshop, but for film. But like obviously Photoshop wasn't.
It's like Microsoft
a
Movie
thing
Maker
in 2001. But I was so. I was so thrown by the opening, and then all of a sudden it goes like real dark, and they do that ominous zoom in on the street sign of Mulholland Drive.
There's so many of the most like random
is happening?
encapsulated scenes that happen, and you're like, okay, I'm on board. This is gonna make sense in a minute. This is gonna tie in, and then the next scene has nothing to do with that. And then they never reference it again. And I'm like, I don't understand. So right after the opening, they show like this point of view pan of this, like on this bed, like on these sheets going on. And there's like kind of breathing, like Michael Myers behind the mask kind of breathing. And then it stops. And then it goes on to the credits. And then it's like, I don't know what that was. I couldn't tell you. I've seen the movie twice. I don't know what that was. So the credits happen, and you get a limousine, and this is where things, I feel like I'm starting to watch a movie. We've got a limousine with a girl. Right.
Like, I felt like, here's the start of the
all
film.
that because it doesn't mean anything. We're watching this girl in this limousine, and she's driving to a place, and they stop, and she's very upset that they stopped before they get to their destination. And then this guy pulls a gun on her. I'm like, okay, now this is interesting. And then you get that hard cut, these teenagers cruising through the mountains, speeding, screaming, very exciting, and then cut back to her. And okay, they're going to get into a crash. Obviously, they're coming her way, and they do. They get into a big crash, and she ends up walking away from it, and ends up falling asleep. Hold on, let me go back to my notes. I'm getting lost. I'm like, something else have to have happened. But
no, you're not really missing anything. The accident happens. She survives, and she kind of wanders into this like gated community where this older woman is leaving, and the woman from the limo, who's like, she's, her head is kind of bleeding. She wanders into the lady's home and does the worst kind of hiding. She hides under the table, which does not have like anything.
That was my first thought. I was like,
her.
You walk up to that table.
I don't mean to get picky.
See a person underneath it.
You're going to see a person underneath it. I don't mean to get picky, but that was the first thought in my head of
deep
like,
table.
That's a bad hiding spot. That's horrible. You are like you were right there. She is walking directly towards you. I even tested. If I walk through my front door and I look in the direction of my table, because the lady is walking directly to her table, do I see the stuff underneath it? Yep, I do.
It's the kind of thing that it makes it very hard to suspend disbelief. It only works if in frame, in camera frame, if you're zoomed in on the top of the table and then you pan down and, oh, wow, there's a woman under it. But from any other angle in the world, any human person walking up to the table, you're going to see her there.
And this was 2001. Cell phones, texting, social media, not there, folks. So the old lady is not that distracted. I don't mean to get picky. It was just an observation.
It's 2001. There's no hardly any internet or anything, because they end up having to do some investigation, going through a phone book and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is kind of different. Obviously, there's no I'll just look that up.
I forgot. I was like, oh man, I remember the days of going through the white pages. It was such a pain, especially if someone was not listed.
So this girl falls asleep in this lady's house. This lady is left on vacation or whatever. She's left her house. We don't really know yet at this point. This lady who's been in the accident falls asleep there. And then we go to a different scene in a diner with these two guys. And this one guy, who I love, actually. He was in a lot of things. Patrick Fischler. He describes to this other guy, he's had dreams about this restaurant. He wanted to come to this specific diner with this guy because he's had two dreams at this point. And he starts describing them, and I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. I like these guys. I like where this is going. And he describes he's had these dreams kind of foreshadowing what's been going on. And the guy's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. He goes to pay and ends up kind of accidentally acting out what the guy just described as his dream. He's like, I had a dream. You were in both of them. You were at that counter. I was very afraid. And then that actually kind of happens. And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so they end up leaving the diner, and there's this scary witch.
And I'm going to pause you at the squarey witch. Okay. I feel like she's going to have the same effect on you that she did with me. What is the point? Why is there this weird old witchy lady? Is she supernatural? Is she evil? What the fuck? Or is she just some homeless lady that's
and
really,
it is scary
really,
because
really
there's a lot of tension. That's the thing about this movie. A lot of this movie has to do with tension building over time, and then sometime it pays off and a scary witch pops out of the corner, and sometimes absolutely nothing fucking happens. But so this lady pops out behind the corner. She is scary, has a dirty face. She may be homeless. I don't know. But then she just kind of retracts back behind the corner. The guy the guy who was describing it passes out because he's so afraid. He just falls to the ground. Apparently, the other guy with him didn't see her. That's the impression I got, that he just didn't see her. He doesn't react. He just reacts to the guy who fainted. And the witch is gone for most of the rest of the movie. She comes back towards the end.
Yeah, she shows up for a real quick, millisecond. Oh, remember
so
her?
The witch
Never
is
mind.
kind of interesting.
And then they move
the
on.
The most important thing were those two guys. They never come back at all. They're gone.
No, the one diner guy does make
split-second
another
kind of
appearance
thing.
towards the end as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real quick. He kind of just looks at
Doesn't mean anything.
Betty. It was like, oh, and then that's it. Because I remember when they showed him, I was like, "Oh, we're tying it back," and then they don't. And I was
so
like,
I
oh,
was,
right, that feels,
I was so
okay.
in at that point, and then I was so out because they never come back. They're not really important. I don't know what it means. The closest I tried so hard to come up with what that means. Why are they in this movie? And the closest thing I could come up with was that girl, like right after that scene, right after you see the witch and he passes out, then you see a shot of this brunette lady who was in the car accident on the bed sleeping. And I'm like, maybe she's having a dream about them. Maybe she's having like a concussed dream because she obviously must have a concussion. She lost her memory, getting ahead of ourselves. So it's so weird. And so I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
See, and I take it as the guys themselves are not so much what's important of that scene, but the diner itself. But the diner ends up being kind of an important.
The diner
setting,
is a
much
thing.
later on.
The diner comes back more than anything else.
Yeah. But yeah, so then we're introduced to Betty, the main character, Naomi Watts, on the plane with the old lady and the old husband guy, and they're like leaving the airport all like super friendly. They're given okay. I have been on several
Most people
flights.
have.
You have been on several flights.
Yeah.
I'm sure our audience have flown. Have you ever gotten that friendly?
I'm not
with
a
your
normal
fellow
person.
passengers?
I refuse to talk to anybody unless I have to. But I do think even the most nice people that I do know people that make friends with everybody, and even they would not have them like carrying their bags for them. You
definitely don't create such a
she's
close
walking
bond
like
with your fellow
she's
passengers.
walking like arm in arm
like
with
hugging
them,
and crying
with that old lady, and I was like, oh, this is her mom, her grandma, somebody helping her out. And then they're like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm like, wait, you just met? What the hell is going on? Yeah.
I'll be looking for you on the big screen. You're like, all right.
And that's a weird thing for you to focus on, first of all. But second of all, that whole scene where she's walking through the airport is so like bright and nice and friendly. And it comes right after being introduced to this weird, dark, mysterious guy in like a wheelchair who's like, he's like,
oh, that's right. I forgot.
Making
how did I forget about the wooden
and,
wheelchair?
About like how this girl is still missing that they're trying to find. You assume it's the girl that we just saw, the brunette girl. And he's in like this nice wooden wheelchair. It has like this armrest, so you assume he's like paraplegic or something. But he's in like this mostly empty room. It's very weird.
It's a very uncomfortable looking office. He's got like his desk in the back corner. The way it's shot makes the room look massive when it's actually probably a standard size office. But it's like, isn't it like kind of a dark red kind of color on the walls? You just feel immediately when you're in that setting, you're like, oh, this is an unsafe place, which is kind of how you feel every time these Hollywood folk are shown in the movie, which I did see a little tidbit about that kind of made me like, okay. apparently this movie is also known as, quote, a poisonous letter.
That's
to
kind of
Hollywood.
the most I could get out of it is that it's very
And
much
I was
about this girl who wants to be an actress. She's got big dreams. She's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and ends up getting like a rude awakening of how like gross and seedy. Yeah,
and Hollywood is actually not that nice.
So it's kind of. I do.
So,
if that's the case,
but we'll get to that.
David Lynch kind of shitting on Hollywood for being like, here is.
Yeah. Well, and so that was when I read that, because that was definitely the feeling I had with all the meeting scenes where they show like the producers, the director trying to just make the film his way, but then caving in and spoiler making it the way the producers. And
that's the weird thing I took from it is it's not so much that Hollywood is controlling it, but that Hollywood is controlled by the mob who just get to decide whoever's in a movie, and so the creative visionary, the director, doesn't get to decide any of that stuff.
Yeah. Although his scene, that part did make me laugh really hard for two reasons. I've never seen a character spit out espresso in such a weird, gross way.
The like fabric napkin that it just continues to roll off of. Like, this is so awkward.
It just runs off of. And then him smashing the windshield with the golf club.
I do think Justin
that.
Theroux as that director is maybe the best part. My favorite part is the cowboy thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, but getting back to the airport scene, there were several times in this movie, and this may be the first time or the most obvious time where the audio in this movie feels so weird. Did you ever get the impression that like everything was just voiceover, like they weren't actually doing the dialogue, like it was?
It felt like there were a handful of moments where I did feel that way. I'm going to take a guess that because it was filmed, so when he was filming the pilot of Mulholland Drive, when it was supposed to be that spin-off TV show, he had a budget of $8 million. And so he only filmed enough for like the pilot, right? It gets canceled, gets dumped before anything can happen with it. Studio Canal gives him, I think it was like an extra $7 million, somewhere in there, to film additional sequences and to
turn it into
an
a
ending,
movie.
because he didn't have an ending for the pilot. Why would you? Yeah. So my assumption, and I could be way off base, I couldn't actually find anything about this, but I do agree the audio goes in and out sometimes, or it doesn't seem like it's matching. I couldn't tell if it was just like, is my internet acting goofy, or is this how the movie is? So I did I'll pause it. Like, is it trying to buffer? What the fuck is going on here? Nope, I think it's just the movie. But I'm wondering if when trying to film extra sequences or having to maybe reshoot some things, maybe not everyone was available to do an actual reshoot or show up for the shot. So they we can record our dialogue and send it to you. Maybe that was what happened, but I didn't see too much. A lot of the stuff I was finding were all the oddities that you and I are obviously focusing on, because it just, it stuck with us. A lot of people take all of that as personal or purposeful artistic direction from David Lynch. Like, this is just what he meant to do. And I'm like, it's a little bit of a weird thing to mean to do.
Funny you say that, because your description, I was like, oh shit, that makes sense. I should have thought of that. My take was, why did you mean to do this? What does this mean? This must mean something. This must be intentional. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that's probably the case. He just didn't have the budget.
I mean, I'm trying to give my brain a little bit of cushion here, because this movie was anything but a cushion for your
Yeah.
brain. It's such
Yeah,
a
I don't think we're-
film. It's like I'm going to get whiplash
All we've
with what's
described
going
so
on
far,
in
I'm
this
sure
movie.
it sounds like a very
soon.
normal movie. It's not. Watch it. It's very weird. So, and the weirdest scene ever happens right after the airport, where the old couple that she was with sits in the back seat of the
old couple?
limousine, absolutely grinning from ear to ear. Yeah.
It is the most awkward.
No old
Smiling
person smiles
I've
that
ever
much. They're
seen.
too jaded,
Like-
too old. They don't give a fuck. It's so forced and creepy that it's just weird.
Yeah, I was like, there is no way
Yeah.
either of their smiles are genuine smiles.
And
like,
she,
this
like,
feels
the old lady-
so
The old lady
odd.
like pats
Like,
the guy's
immediately-
leg.
I'm so glad you brought
and
this
nothing
up.
really happens in that scene. I don't know why it's in the movie. What does it mean? They're smiling so much.
They're just smiling.
Why?
Like, it looks, especially the old
Yeah.
lady, it looked like she was in pain.
It's like that
physical
meme,
pain.
that
trying
Adam
to
Driver
smile.
meme where he's like, more. That's
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I was about to if you did not. I was so like, when is
Yeah.
it?
I was
What?
like,
why are they?
Okay, so I understand the audio thing, but that scene must mean something. What does it mean? Why?
Help us out here, folks. I feel like I'm a little mad at Mulholland
both.
Drive or David Lynch. I don't know if it's justifiable. I think I said this exact same thing when we were talking about. Oh shit! I forget
Was it
which
Akira?
movie. A pretty recent episode, actually. Yeah, it may have been Akira, where I was like, "You and I tend to be like."
Yeah.
We're pretty in tune with a movie. We can
Mm-hmm.
catch on to the metaphors. We can figure some things out, not easily, but we're able to like,
Yeah.
oh, I see what the filmmaker was doing here. I wonder if this is the direction it'll go in. And we have a pretty
Right.
good track record with being correct. David Lynch and Mulholland Drive made me be like, do I understand movies? at
Well,
all?
the thing about
Do I
Akira was I
understand?
gave it so much grace where I was like, it's a different culture. It's an anime. I don't really, there are a lot of things I'm sure that happen that I don't really get. And that's fine. I don't have to. If I watched more anime, I'm sure I would.
Mhm.
With Mulholland Drive, I'm like, this is Western. This is David Lynch. This is normal Hollywood. I feel like I should know what's going on, and I don't. And it bothers me. Yeah.
You know what? I just thought of this. Office fans, you will crack up about this. Watching Mulholland Drive, I just came to me. I imagine watching Mulholland Drive would be a lot like if the character Robert California was real and you tried to have a
Yeah.
conversation with him.
That's true. That is so true. It's like too true. That's really good.
That just clicked, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god!"
If anybody in this
Oh
movie
my
turned and said, "I am the Lizard King," it would fit. It would fit in the movie. Anyone
It
can
would
do
fit.
anything at any time, and it would fit in this movie.
If geishas had popped
Yeah.
up,
That's his.
it
thing.
would just be like, "Yep, there it is." It would-
No.
Oh man, yeah,
We
we're
need to
not
get
even
moving.
like
So,
15 minutes into
Betty
the movie, folks.
goes to this apartment. She's come to Hollywood to be an actress. That's her whole thing. And so she goes to this apartment. Her aunt has moved away for another movie, and so Betty's going to stay at her place. Betty is Naomi Watts' character. By the way, I've mentioned several
Right,
times
and-
in this podcast. I think most recently on the Peter Jackson episode. I love Naomi Watts. She is underrated in a weird way
Yes.
for a major Hollywood actress who I'm sure has been all around the place. She is underrated. She is amazing. I love her. And so I was excited for this. I was excited for this movie. She may be the only thing I know about
And
this
she's-
movie is that Naomi Watts is in it. She wants to be an actress.
And you know what? She does a pretty good job in this movie. Like she's a powerhouse.
Moving on. So Betty is Naomi Watts. She wants to be an actress. She moves into her aunt's apartment. And when she gets into her aunt's apartment, she finds this woman in her shower.
So this is okay. We're gonna have a lot of and here's where we have to interject.
Hold on.
So yeah, you find out that the aunt is the old lady that left, and you find out the apartment is the one that the brunette from the beginning is crashing in. Or what do they call it? There's a term for it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but they have a different word. Anyways.
Is this something the kids say?
Anyways.
Okay.
I don't know. It's some phrase.
Yeah.
When she just goes in the bathroom and just opens up the shower and sees the brunette showering, and she's like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't know someone was staying here." She holds that door open for a beat too long and then closes the door and then is like, "I'll go." And then stops at the door and is like, "Do you need anything? I'll just be waiting out here." And then finally leaves the bathroom. Okay.
Yeah.
You can see through the shower door. The shower is running. So clearly, I didn't think it was someone running. Else is in the place. And B,
I thought that she heard her move.
You can hear it. That's
shower,
how she knows.
The shower was off. She had heard her come in or something. Maybe.
Or maybe she heard the shower turn off.
Yeah.
Either way, there's a shower and the lady's in it. She's oddly really calm.
Yeah.
That there is
some
stranger hanging out
that it's a friend of her aunt's who she's like, "Oh, my aunt didn't tell you you would be here." And the lady doesn't really give her any reason why she's there. And she just accepts it and assumes. She's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is totally fine." She's like, "Oh, I'm Betty, by the way." And I thought that it was going to be very cliche. And she's like, "Oh, I don't remember my name," but it doesn't do that. I mean, she says it with her face. She's like, "I don't remember who I am," but she doesn't actually say it. So that at least I was like, "Oh, it's not terribly cliche, at least." It does that later. Betty excuses herself before it can actually really do that, and so she leaves the bathroom. And the brunette sees posters of Rita Hayworth, the actress, when she gets out, and so she decides to tell Betty her name is Rita instead.
Yeah, and she just accepts it, and they are so. Oddly comfortable with each other without knowing each other. I think this is a theme in this movie that I was like, none of this makes sense. No human being is this comfortable with a stranger this quick.
Betty's telling her she's telling her her life story. She's
all this out
I want to be an actress.
Yeah. And they're and Rita's hanging out in the bedroom wearing nothing but a towel, and they're just two girls sitting in this bedroom, and you're like, I think I know what direction David Lynch is going to take this movie.
I didn't at all. I was like, oh, they're just, she's just a nice girl. You
didn't guess that they were going to get frisky with each other?
To the point where...
Really?
This is getting way ahead of ourselves, but later in the movie... Betty invites Rita to she's like, "Oh, you don't need to stay on the couch. You can just sleep in this giant bed I have here." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's totally normal. Two girls hanging out." And then she just got out of the shower, so she takes off her. I was like, "Oh, she's going to go get pajamas on or whatever." Nope. Dumps her towel in complete nude. Yeah.
Right in front of Betty.
Okay,
just
if I was Betty, I'd be like, "Okay, I invited you to sleep next to me, but a little weird you were going to sleep in the nude. Kind of not cool, but we're past it."
I'm pretty sure that breaks some rules when people are like,
"No,
we'll just
rule number one is one person under the sheet, one person over the sheet." That's rule number one. But so she breaks the rule of not sleeping in the nude, and I'm like, okay, maybe she's a weird eccentric. She's concussed. She has a head injury, whatever. And then she starts she kisses Betty goodnight, And I was like, okay, whoa, where is this going? And then they start like making out, and then Betty like they admit like a big lesbian crush on each other, and I was not ready at all for any of that. And Betty's like, I love you, and I was like, where does that come from?
So okay, yeah, and the movie's timeline is like 2 or 3 days, 2 days. And she's like, I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you. I mean, granted, that made a little more sense when the movie was concluding. But until the movie concluded, I was very like, oh my God, you are a troubled individual. You should stop trusting people like this. And that's what the movie's
We just ended right there. No, I've thinking back, I've never seen Mulholland Drive, but I do remember it being like talked about around Oscar season. I remember when it came out. I think I remember it being like a thing that people talked about, like, oh, lesbian nudity and like sex and stuff in this movie. But I didn't remember till way after all of it happened. And so I was like, oh, wait, was that this movie? What's going on?
Yeah. I remember when it came out, but I was too young. It came out in 2001, so we were like hitting the teenager, like fresh into teenager years. So I'm sure if we heard any talkings of, oh, there's nudity in this movie, being an adolescent boy, I'm going to take a wild guess and be like, I would have been like, ooh, I should watch that movie. Because as an adolescent boy and you hear that there's nudity in a movie, you're like, it's going to be full of boobs.
Yeah, there were so many. This would have been like the perfect movie. I don't know if there are any adolescent boys out there listening, but this would have been like the perfect movie. There were so many movies that I wasn't allowed to see parts of as like a kid. They're like, my parents would make me like close my eyes or whatever. And then so I would, when they're away, just pop in the video, fast forward to it, see what's up. And it generally was nothing. It was like, oh, it was like popping in Die Hard. It's like, oh, you see a boob for half a second, not really anything, doesn't really count. If it was Mulholland Drive, though, it'd be a different story.
Yep. So back to when they are first meeting each other. I totally was like, yeah, they're going to get it on in this movie.
That. I had no idea. So they kind of like, eventually Rita tells Betty about her like issue. She was in an accident. She lost her memory, and Betty like tries to help her. And Rita just wants to go to sleep. And Betty's like, oh no, if you were in an accident, you shouldn't take a nap, which was the first thing I thought. I was like, you are concussed. You should not go to sleep. What are you doing? But she decides to go to sleep anyway. And the next scene is two scary mob guys go to a meeting at Ryan Entertainment, which I assume is some film production studio. And they meet with some producers and a director played by Justin Theroux, who has a golf club sitting on the table for no real reason other than, he's an eccentric
he just
director.
Carries it with him.
And these two scary guys walk in. They slide a headshot across the table like this photo resume of this girl, and they keep saying, this is the girl. This is the girl. And
this is the
Justin
girl.
Theroux, who is my favorite part of the movie. He's the only one who seems to indicate something weird is going on. This doesn't make sense. What the fuck's going on? Which is how I feel as an audience member. So there are several times where he's like, "What? Why are you saying that this girl should be in my movie? Why are you trying to take over this stuff?" And the creepy,
there's no answers. No one
the
says
creepy
anything.
Wheelchair guy from the beginning, he is like listening into this meeting, and so which is like a weird thing that isn't really referenced, but is, if you watch it twice like I did, is noticeable. He's listening into this meeting, so he seems to be interested or at least related to these guys, these two mobster guys. And
I like how you're trying to be sneaky about giving the dogs their bones.
I thought I did a good job.
Not being sneaky.
Apparently you could tell.
No. I'm not judging you because I've dropped my pen like 3 times and have been like, I could be sneaky, but I'm not going to be.
Yeah. They were
There's
doing
too
a good
many
job
wires
of
around
They
here.
needed something to do, so I was prepared. Yeah. But this is the espresso scene that you mentioned. These producers seem to know that this guy really likes espresso. They're like, I'm sorry you didn't like the espresso last time. We really tried hard to get good espresso this time. And it's the longest scene where they bring in this espresso. The guy makes a big deal about tasting it and then spits it out into his napkin.
And it like runs off.
Yeah.
But it's not just that he spits it out. You got to think the best way I can compare it to. Do you remember in like Big
Yeah.
when he spits the caviar
Yeah.
out and he does that like bleh? That's how this guy spits out the espresso.
Yeah.
So it just makes it so much worse. And yeah, it runs off the napkin and they're like, I'm so sorry. They said it was like the
one
best
producer
espresso
is like
ever. And
visibly
they're
like
"We're outta here."
terrified, like shaking, like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, like scared of like this reaction from this guy who doesn't like it.
Yeah. And so then they threaten to like completely shut down what's
Adam.
the director's name? Isn't it like Alex
Yeah.
or something like that? Adam. Shut down Adam's whole production. Not just like, hey, you're not going to direct it, but like we're killing the whole project because this one actress isn't in it. And he leaves the meeting after being told like it's over. And I laughed out loud at this because I was like, ooh, we got some like, okay, I think I'm going to figure out where this movie's going now. He's going to be pissed. He's going to find her. And the movie's going to end up being like him trying to protect Betty, try to get her in his movie to get the movie made. And somehow Rita's going to tie in. I thought that's what they were doing.
Not at all.
That was not what they did. But, but when he goes to the limo with the golf club, and he says like the guy's name, and the driver's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
When he starts smashing that windshield and just like skimps away and drives off, I was like, I laughed out loud. And then I thought, man, that car just was ready to go immediately.
Yeah.
I guess having a valet helps.
And so Adam starts driving home. His assistant calls him and is like, hey, you need to come back. They like shut everything down. They fired everybody. And he's like, no, I'm not going to come back. I'm just going home. And so when he gets home, he sees like the pool guy truck there. And then there's nobody out by the pool. And so he finds in his bedroom with his wife, the pool guy.
Right. So before we get to the pool guy and the very obvious, when he pulls up and you see the pool guy's van, you're like, oh, he's going to walk in on them having sex. Like you just know. But when he walked in the house and he puts the golf club in his golf bag, I had to laugh. And I'm wondering if this was more of a Justin Theroux decision for his character as like a little hint to the backstory. I pictured, I don't know why, but immediately thought, I wonder if this character, this director Adam, when he leaves the house every day, picks a different club to take with him.
He's got a full...
I just got because it's right by the door.
He has
it
a full
looks so
set,
routine
a full bag
the way
of
he
golf
did it.
clubs sitting there, and he just, as soon as he gets home, pops the one back in. So yeah, you assume he must, whichever one he feels like that day, he must just take.
Yeah. So I actually like if I like caught onto a little character trait there, I love that character trait, especially for this character. Because at this point, like I'm on Adam's side. I'm like, I kind of like this guy. I have no idea what the point of him is.
To this day.
But I like this guy. Yeah, and then he walks in on his wife and the pool guy. And I had to pause the movie at this point. We have seen so many movies with so many just random cameos that you're like, oh, that's cool. Right? And then I watched this movie, and fucking Billy Ray Cyrus shows up as the pool boy. I was like I paused it and just stared at his face for a minute and was like, that's him. Isn't him, right?
His wife Portia de Rossi too?
No, Portia de
real
Rossi
life
is married to Ellen,
but not in the movie.
Oh, in real life, yeah.
Does she play the wife of Adam?
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I didn't pay any attention to the wife. I was so focused on why the hell is Billy Ray Cyrus in this movie? I know. I was like, he better not freaking break out into achy breaky heart. There better not be. And I was like, maybe he'll change up his voice.
Everybody knows Alan Jackson.
He didn't.
Achy breaky heart. But the funniest thing to me is after Adam sees him and his wife and this pool guy having like an affair, his solution to this problem is to grab his wife's jewelry box, leave the room with it, and she's like, "Where are you going with that?" So she gets dressed and tries to chase him. He goes to the garage to grab bright pink paint, then goes into the kitchen and starts pouring the paint on the jewelry. And I'm like, why and how? And all of the questions.
It like splatters all over his all black suit onto his wife.
Yeah. And there's a big tussle and she kicks him out, and it's understandable. It's a big fight. But so he goes to a hotel. And we're kind of skipping over scenes, but a lot of the scenes are kind of broken up. So I think this actually makes more sense. Sorry, David Lynch, to re-edit your movie. He goes to a hotel, and there's this weird guy with a bleached mustache who comes to his hotel door and says, "Hey, some guys just showed up, and they said they're from the bank, and they said that you have no money." And Adam says, "Well, I paid you in cash, so I don't know why you're bothering me." Which I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm on Adam's side. Adam's the only one in this movie that makes sense. And so it's like, and then the guy continues to describe, well, they said they're from the bank and all your cards have been canceled. And Adam's like, well, that's weird and not true. But I understand why you're upset. And so it's like, gives him more money, more cash for some reason. And then he goes inside and calls his assistant, and his assistant's like, "Hey, I heard you're broke." And he's like, "Yeah, I heard that too, but I'm not broke." She's like, "Yeah, well, I heard the guy called me, said that you didn't have any money, and so I called around and found out you're broke." And he's like, "Okay, that sucks." And then they skip past that, and she's like, "This guy called, and he's called the cowboy." And this is the best Justin Thoreau part where he's like, "Oh, yeah?" And she's like, "Yeah, and he wants you to go to this ranch at the top of the canyon and meet him." And Justin Thoreau's like, "Should I get my 6-shooter and my 10-gallon hat?" He's sarcastic, and I loved it. He's definitely the best part of this movie. But she's like, apparently this cowboy guy is like a big deal. And he needs to go meet him in the middle of the night, and that's pretty much the whole scene. That's most of the scene. That's what happens.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, before we get to the cowboy, because that's going to be a whole thing. Before we get to the cowboy, there's a scene with two guys just that we've never seen before, just shooting the shit in this guy's office. And one of the guys has long hair and one guy's in like a leather jacket. And
did you recognize the one guy in the leather jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jacob from Lost.
Which I enjoyed thoroughly. But they're like just having a conversation and they talk about like, the weird part to me is they talk about like this funny story that he told or wrote about a car accident. And I was like, is this the car accident? I don't understand. And then Jacob, I don't know his actual name, the guy, Yeah.
We're gonna call him
He
Jacob,
points out
'cause
this
that's how we
black
know
book
him.
on the desk, and he's like, "Hey, is that the thing?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, this is the black book. Has all this guy's information in it." And so he shoots the guy with the long hair. But
Yeah, he,
And
like,
so
turns
Jacob
out
is
to
like
be a
this
killer.
hitman of sorts, and he tries to like set up the scene to make it look like this guy killed himself, and ends up shooting the wall, and ends up going through the wall and hitting this lady on the other side. And so he has to go around and like try to kill her now because she's a witness.
And he has the hardest time trying to kill her. She's a fighter. And it's one of the funniest, like, hitman scenes I've seen in a movie because he's so bad at it. Like, the way he kills the first victim, you're like, oh, shit. Like, that was well done. And then he shoots the wall, and you're like, "Oh, you suck at your job."
He tries to strangle her, and he can't.
And
I mean, she's a bigger lady, but it's hard to strangle her. And then so he tries to carry her out of the room, and then
why does he
trying to bring her into the other room with the other
room?
big guy, and he'll just leave them both there. But this janitor sees him do it, and so he's like.
The
just stares at this guy
response.
dragging this woman screaming.
And he's like, "Come in here!
Like,
I need you to help me.
She's really
Come in
sick.
here!
You need to come call the police. She's really sick."
Come call 911 for me. Come in here. It's okay. Come in here."
And so he gets her, the woman, into the room, kills her. She's now two bodies in this room. The janitor comes in. He kills the janitor. Now he's got just a room full of bodies, and ends up shooting the vacuum, which turned on when he killed the janitor. It sparks and starts a fire and turns on the fire alarm. And this guy's just like, shit, all of these terrible things are happening. He's a terrible hitman.
Yeah, and he remembers the book and then bails out the window. It was like, there's so many moments in Mulholland Drive where I felt like, oh, here we go, we're connecting stuff. Oh, we're gonna have kind of a flow. Like, I felt there are several moments. This was one of them where I thought, oh, he's going to show back up. Like, was he the one contracted to, like, was he in the limo at the beginning? I was trying to think of that, and I was like, all right, where is this guy fitting in? He does fit the story, but not until much later, where they do like a
switcheroo.
Anyways, the timeline of Mulholland Drive gets a little weird, and it's only the course of 2 or 3 days.
After all that, we're back to Betty and Rita, who, by the way, internally, I kept calling Rita Veronica. I was like, oh, Betty and Veronica, because they're a blonde and a brunette, and Rita doesn't really have a name. I'm like, her name's just Veronica. Let's just decide. And so internally,
I feel like we all just learned
as they try to like
Jake.
solve her mental memory loss and go on this adventure. I'm like, but it's Betty and Veronica. Let's just decide. But Betty and Rita, they have this. So Betty realizes that she's not just a house guest. She's some girl. She called her aunt, and her aunt told her, I have no idea who that is. So she confronts her, and Rita admits, oh, I had this accident. And so Betty is like, oh, obviously, let's look in your purse, because your purse has your ID. It'll have your name. Duh, of course, let's do that.
Right.
And so they do. And there's no information in there other than there's stacks and stacks of cash and this weird blue cash. Key. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, whatever. This movie is going wherever it's going to go. I can't keep up.
So the blue key is not just a blue key, though. This is such a
It's not a
what? It's one of those like odd, super long triangle, like 3D.
It's immaculate, kind of like a skeleton key, but the tip of it is very specific. It has like this diamond shape or triangle shape. It's not an ordinary key. It's mystical.
Right. And you're like, oh, we're gonna actually be solving clues now. And then my brain was like, didn't they have a key like that in the Da Vinci Code? And I was like, dude, we are not going with so many different clues and deciphering stuff. I'm trying to decipher a full movie right now, not an adventure.
Yeah, you're not Robert Layton. You can't just find every solution. Yeah,
you are not that smart. God damn it! But I was very thrown off by the key and the cash, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So we're gonna go into an even wider world of.
And so Betty tries to get her to remember stuff. All she can remember is Mulholland Drive. So they call the cops, and they're like, "Was there an accident on Mulholland Drive?" They're like, "Yes," and then they can't find anything else out. Like as soon as she tries to ask more questions, the cops ask her more questions, and so she hangs up. Wants to keep it anonymous. And so, I guess the next interesting thing is not Veronica, Rita. I'm going to confuse people if I start calling her Veronica. That's just for me. That's not for you. Rita, damn it. Rita has this memory, or has a weird memory where they're at Winky's Diner. So after they called the cops at the payphone, they go to Winky's Diner, and it's the same diner from the beginning. Those two guys the one guy had the dream, and he tells the witch thing we talked about. And she looks at the waitress's name, and it says Diane, which I do think is important. We'll get back to that in a minute. But she's has a memory trigger, and she's like, Diane, and she remembers this girl's name, Diane Selwyn. And so they look her up in the white pages. And one thing, I didn't realize this because I didn't do any research about the movie before I watched it. But after I saw it once, I looked at the IMDb page, and it's very weird and interesting that Naomi Watts is credited as both Betty and Diane Selwyn, which we'll come back to later. Betty and Rita go to they want to go to Diane's apartment. They look her up in the white pages. They figure out where she is. They make a plan to go, but they can't go until Betty goes to her audition. So, backing up a second, Betty and Coco. So we didn't talk at all about Coco. Coco is the landlady of the apartment that her aunt has. She's annoying.
Coco's kind of annoying.
She's also the dance instructor from the Home Improvement episode where Tim and Jill have a dance class. For all of you Home Improvement fans out there.
That's where I know her from.
I knew you would get that.
Thank
I was
you,
like,
Jake.
hey, that's that lady. Big Home Improvement fans here on the Movie Boners podcast.
Yep.
So Coco is the landlady, and there's this weird scene where this lady is knocking at the door, and she appears on the porch, and she starts talking to Betty, and she's not she might be the witch lady from before, but she seems to be this crazy old lady who is not dirty and weird like the witch lady, but she does have a shawl thing on. That's what makes me think that it's related. But she's like, hey, you have, what did she say? She's like, you have a problem, or you're in trouble. And she's like, no, I'm Ruth's niece. I'm staying here because I'm an actress. And she's like, no, there's somebody else here that's in trouble. And she kind of gets pulled away by Coco before she sees Rita on the couch. But Coco brings Betty some acting pages, a script that she's going to audition for. And it's interesting to me how Rita and Betty run through this script, and it's a very kind of cliche, silly, soap opera-y script that they kind of start laughing about. Yeah. They're like, oh, this is so bad. I can't believe I'm trying out for this kind of thing. And so I liked that scene, and I liked how it came back later. I feel like this happens a couple of times where something is foreshadowed, or or something happens and is treated as like the initial appearance of it is like kind of pure or your normal perception of it, and then later that thing comes back and and the perception of it is different. It's the same but different, and I feel like that happens a couple times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically it
time?
happens throughout the whole
All right,
movie.
that's fair.
But we'll get to that.
But so Betty tells Rita that she will come back for her and they will go to Diane's house, the lady that she remembered, and it might be her. She's not sure who. She'll go to her house after audition. So she goes to her audition and she has to meet all these people.
We need to talk about this audition scene. Like this is.
I feel like it's one of the main points of the movie, while also not meaning anything.
Yes,
in the movie. It's so weird.
Well, I would actually say the audition scene, after finishing it and then after kind of reading like production notes in the comment section, trying to figure out how did other people break this down, or how did David Lynch want this broken down. There's not a lot on, actually, folks, on how David Lynch wanted to break the movie down. There's like a whole thing of, hey, here are the clues to the whole mystery, and reading the list of clues, you're like, those aren't clues to the mystery at all. Anyways, the audition scene to me, man, I felt so gross and so uncomfortable. I squirmed the end from the moment she walks in the office to when she finally leaves. I was squirming. I was like, I am uncomfortable with this scene. I'm
glad you said that.
Like
I wasn't sure really how to take it, because I was like, part of me was like, oh, she's doing a really good job acting. Maybe this is, how it's supposed to be. And she does do things where she kind of leads the scene in a way. But at the same time, I'm like, this is extremely intimate for a audition, and awkward that this weird old guy is trying to like make out with this girl during an audition. And they do. And so when she shows up and the introductions are made, and then she goes to read. When she walks in, I mean, it's in an office. It's not even in like an audition room. So immediately I was like, oh, this feels unsafe. This feels gross. Why is there an old guy reading this scene with her? That is not the kind of like co-star I pictured when she was doing the goofy soap opera version with Rita. Well, not an old guy, but he calls her baby right away. And immediately when he said that, I was like, oh, he does do several creepy things. I was more or less okay with his casting, because they do describe, oh, this is the guy that we've actually cast for the role. He'll be playing against you. And the scene is about, she has like some romantic / murderous thing with with her dad's best friend, who you assume will be older. But yeah, the guy, like when he's not doing scripted things, when he's just talking to her, is saying creepy things and doing creepy things.
Yeah, he's like, his hand placement is awkward. And I take her whole audition not so much like, oh, she's just really into the role. I take it more as she's just kind of she's diving completely in with what she thinks is expected of her, which would be, to me, the poisonous letter to Hollywood whole aspect. Sure. I hate the audition scene. It is one of my notes that I like specifically called out to being, I hate this scene so much. Not because I feel it's unnecessary. I actually think it's probably one of the most necessary scenes in the movie, just with how everything turns out. But wow, was I so grossed out by how everyone's like, oh, this is fine. This is great. The old man shoving his tongue down her throat. Look at that. And like, she's kind of leading the scene at times, but like I said, my perception of this whole part was she's just doing what she feels she is expected of her to already do. And I hate this scene so much, man.
The most interesting thing to me was the stark contrast between the same words when she played it with her friend in the kitchen. It felt very cheesy, and you can take those same words and play them in a very different way and make it better or more interesting or more impactful.
Well, her lines definitely have a lot more weight during her audition than they did when she was practicing just memorizing.
So on the page, you can take something, and how you play it is as important as what you're playing, and is an interesting thing.
Yeah. Fucking audition scene, man. I was like, yep, this is gross. Hollywood casting folk, you're gross. We're such a giant hypocrisy, Jake.
I mean,
we love movies. We hate the people that are behind it.
Nothing is not a hypocrite. Absolutely.
To be human. Yeah. And then she they all praise her when the scene's over. And the casting director, this lady who's sitting on the couch, she's like, I'm going to take her over right away. And then they go to a set where Adam is holding his audition. Oh, we missed your cowboy. Okay, so we got to pause.
Yes.
We got to go to the cowboy.
No.
I'm sorry, Jake. We got to...
So Adam has to go meet the cowboy because it's such an important thing, apparently. And he gets to this corral, and it's dark and tense, and this light mysteriously flickers, and it turns on when the cowboy arrives. And the cowboy is a very stereotypical cowboy. He's got a giant white cowboy hat and a red bandana around his neck and a heavy coat. He's a cowboy.
He's a rancher.
If you said, "Oh, he's a cowboy," he's pretty much what you would think. And he has this conversation where he tells Adam this kind of cryptic philosophy about how a man's attitude determines his life, and he's very intentional about keeping Adam on track and not letting him dismiss things as with his sarcasm, which has been his thing. And so he's like, do you agree with that? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, who cares? And he's like, no, do you really agree with that? Or are you just saying that because you think that's what I want to hear? And so I thought it was pretty interesting. I also thought it was interesting that Adam he was paying attention. I thought he was dismissing it too, but he was paying attention and is able to recite it back. And the cowboy is basically, his whole point is to convince Adam to do the same thing the mom guys tried to get him to do, where he's like, this girl's gonna try out for your movie, and it's your job to say, yeah, this is the girl, and if you don't say that, you're gonna see me 2 more times. If you're bad, if you're a good little boy, then you're gonna see me 1 more time, and that's about it. And then the cowboy leaves. Yeah.
Then the cowboy leaves. Yeah, the cowboy had me are you a genuinely cryptic kind of character? Are you supposed to? Is there something mystical of you, or are you just the mobster guy?
Yeah,
are you
it's it's ominous and dorky at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really know how to take the cowboy guy, but apparently Adam takes him very seriously. So getting back to where we were, Betty goes with this casting director, and she's the thing that kind of struck me, and shout out to Naomi Watts' acting, because she does a great job of acting. She's so excited, having nailed this audition, completely transformed this terrible script, generally nailed it. Everybody applauded. They liked it. The producer seemed ecstatic. We didn't touch on it.
The director seemed like he hadn't
the
even
director
watched
doesn't
the
give a fuck.
audition.
He doesn't know what's going on. The producer's like, hey, do you have any notes? And every note he gives is like the most ambiguous thing that everybody kind of looks around. They're like, do you know what that means? What am I supposed to do?
And I was like, no, just go.
Totally.
Oh.
I can do that. But this casting director, who's not even the casting director for the movie, takes her out, and they're like, wow, that movie sucks. And she's kind of has her excitement shattered because she's like, oh, I thought I nailed it. And it's so funny that they're like so jaded by actual Hollywood that they're like, no, that guy's never going to make that movie. It doesn't matter. You were actually good, but who cares? And but she's like about to be taken to this other guy who she's like, they believe in her. They're like, yeah, you actually were good. We think you'll be good for this other project. So they bring her across the lot to Adam's movie. And this is kind of the other thing that I think comes back later, where he's casting this movie, which is very kind of 50s style, like singer.
His auditions are these women who have to sing like basically doo-wop songs or whatever, some kind of poppy song from the 50s. And that's their audition. And he looks
they
so
seem
like
to be
whatever.
really good. At least my perception watching it was like, oh, I like these singers. They're really incredible. Having watched the movie, I'm pretty convinced that this is a reference to later on where they're actually just recorded and it's not real. And I think this ties in later, which we'll get to. But the first lady I really liked, and he likes her, but he knows that she's not the girl the mom said you should accept. And then the girl the mom said you should accept comes on, and she's good too. She's fine. But Betty comes in, and they kind of lock eyes with each other. The director and Adam and Betty, they lock eyes. They don't really interact though, and that's about it. This girl Camilla that he's supposed to accept, he ends up accepting. He's like, this is the girl. He says what he's supposed to say, what the cowboy said he should say. And there's a mob guy like over the shoulder of this other guy who's like, you made the
making sure he says what
right
he's supposed to say
or whatever he says. And but before Betty can meet him, she has to leave. She's like, oh, I told Rita that we would go see Diane's apartment, which I think is an interesting like character moment, because if you just nailed an audition and you were pulled aside by this casting director, you're about to meet this director, this could be your big break. This could be the whole reason you came out here. And she decides to leave because she told her, instead of being late to meet her friend, she told her friend she would meet her. And so she drops it. And
she totally bails out. And everyone's like, oh.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Oh.
Yeah. Which I think it makes me like her more. I'm like, oh, you're just being a good friend more than you're not being selfish, I guess. So it makes you like Betty more.
Right.
So Betty and Rita go to Diane's apartment, and there's like these there's like these guys it seems like there might be guys in a car watching the place. So they go around back, and then it seems like they might actually not be there, like watching the place. It might just be picking up somebody. So it's kind of left open-ended. But they go to...
Yeah, and
that was just because they go to apartment 12 where Diane's supposed to be, and this other lady's there. And she's like, oh, actually, Diane's in apartment 17 because we switched apartments. And I'm like...
She still has some of my stuff.
Like, that doesn't happen. Like, nobody does that. But okay. Right. And so they go to apartment 17, and nobody answers the door, and Betty breaks in. And you can tell as soon as she does open the door, she goes in through the window, opens the door for Rita, and she's holding her nose. It's very obvious. Like, oh, it smells bad in there. I'm like, oh, she's dead. She's super dead.
Right. Like, oh, there's a body in there.
But when they...
Well, yeah, because they even hint to, like, no one has heard from her for a few weeks or whatever. Like, she's been missing for some time.
Yeah, but it's so... when they go in and they see this dead body on the bed, it's kind of weird because at least what I took from it was something different must have happened to her because her face seems so much more decayed than like her arms and legs, which you see. They're just kind of like dirty, but her face is like, she looks kind of gross. And so you don't really know what's going on other than they run out of the apartment and there's more weird editing where they kind of run towards the camera and there's like superimposed double image going on.
the superimpose, where it like, I was, what the fuck? They didn't take drugs on this.
So I didn't know if that was supposed to like just represent her. She's induced, like indicating her craze-induced terror or something. That
right? I was like, was this a thing movies did in 2001? Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Like, is this an editing trick?
50s or something? I don't know. But so they seem to think that Rita may be in danger because this girl's dead. We don't know if this is her name or not. We don't know anything about her. But so they cut her hair. They cut her hair, give her a blonde wig.
They cut Rita's hair.
They cut Rita's hair. Give her a blonde wig. And this is the scene we talked about where...
And this is where they get it on.
And it's just caught me out of the blue where I had no idea that he was in love with Rita or that even had a lesbian crush on her. Like, it was just a weird thing. Since when was that the case? I had no idea.
Yeah, and it goes on. Like, it does not get, I guess, graphic would be the word. Or it doesn't, like, it's a pretty long scene, but they don't do a whole lot.
I was...
Like, they make out, and they do some weird cupping.
That's fair.
And that's about
the longer it went on, the more I was concerned that it was going to, like, be a thing. But, ultimately, it's not like there's scissoring or anything going on.
But it does seem like it goes on for a few beats too much. Like, you get the gist when they lay down and start kissing. You get it. You can move on from that, Lynch. You can.
But I guess the main point of that is that they're in bed at the same time when Rita starts sleep talking, and she starts talking in Spanish, saying mostly silencio, and then wakes up and is like, you need to go with me to this place right now. And Betty's like, I guess.
Yeah, she's like, but it's 3 a.m. And she's like, you have to come with me now. And she's like, I'll go with you. Okay. And they get all dolled up and they go to this weird theater. And I kept telling myself, like, okay, so they woke up at 3 a.m. I've been to LA. Traffic does not really ease up. So I'm assuming they got ready probably decently quick. Their commute was probably not great, depending on how far this theater was from where Betty is staying, or from where they're staying. And there's like people in the theater, and I'm like, fuck, man, it's got to be at least like 4:35 in the morning at this point. And this theater show is just now starting. What the hell?
Yeah, they somehow arrived right on time. It starts as soon as they walk in. And there's like a guy yelling. He's basically talking about how there's no live band. There's no band in this place. And referring to the music that's playing in the background or on stage, obviously recorded, pointing out there's no clarinet, there's no trombone, but you're still hearing clarinet, you're still hearing trombone. And then he's like, he calls out specifically a muted trumpet. And then you see a guy walk out playing a muted trumpet. And you're like, okay. And then he like pulls his trumpet away from his mouth, lifts his arms up, and the trumpet's still playing in the background.
Yeah, it's like everything's a recording. Everything has already happened or whatnot.
And then there's this like break. What seems like a break, and that thing must be done. And there's like flashing lights, and Betty goes into this weird epileptic seizure type thing.
Yeah, she's like having a seizure.
And nobody talks about it, and I don't know what this happened. I was like, she's just like freaking out, and then the guy who was on stage disappears, and this other guy, actually the bleached mustache guy from the hotel, he comes in to introduce the next act, or what you assume is the next act, and it's this lady, and she starts singing a song, which is the most beautiful song. I totally understand. It's in Spanish. You understand why Betty and Rita and everybody in the audience is moved by it. They're like crying, like not just like a single tear, but like crying.
Right.
And then the lady on stage faints and falls, and the singing keeps going. And so you're at the same time a little bit concerned about the lady who just passed out, but also you feel tricked because you believed that she was singing, even though the guy. Might be my favorite part of the movie. The host had just told you 100 times, nothing is real. Everything is recorded. Right. He proved it over and over again. But then there was a little bit of a break, and so you kind of stopped thinking that pertained to now. And so this kind of reproves it that. No, this is the act, that even that thing that you thought was so beautiful was not real, kind of, in a way.
Yeah. And it's sorry. Oh, big yawn. It's perhaps, for such a weird scene that feels so out of place the first time you watch it, it might be the most important scene, because it's pretty much telling you everything that you've needed to hear throughout the course of this film.
Yeah, it comes pretty late, but yeah, it does seem like it could be applied to the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Although I say that, but then they also follow up that whole scene with the close-up of the lady with blue hair sitting in the balcony, and you're like, who is she?
Nothing. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
Nothing. Yeah. She doesn't matter. She's not there. But you're just like, oh, another. Yeah. Okay.
Another red herring. And the characters don't seem to have learned anything, because the end of that scene is they find or are given. I'm very unclear how they get this blue box. So it's like in their purse or in a different purse. Somehow they just are holding the blue box, and you're like, oh.
It comes out of a... Does it come out of a purse? I only watched it 1 1/4. Remember, I fell asleep the second time.
It looked like it came out of like the same sort of purse that had the money and the blue key, but I don't know how it would get into their purse.
But it's a... Yeah, so it's like a small... It looks like a small gift box, but it's all blue, and it happens to have the triangle hole, and you're like, oh, that's what the key goes in. Oh, shit, what's it gonna be? And this scene kind of bothered me, because I can't tell if this is like a mistake in the film, or if it was just David Lynch fucking with my head even more, which I'm citing on that. Citing on that, because why wouldn't he? She puts the key in, and she turns that key. But it's a close-up of the box the whole time, and there is there's no, not crease, but there's no, like, cut part of the hole where it would turn. The paint stays completely solid, and I was so like, she turned it, right? Didn't she turn the key?
The thing I didn't notice the first time I watched it, which seems so obvious I should have noticed. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't get to it the second time, and maybe you did what I did. As soon as they get home, they walk in the door and they're like, oh, we have this blue box. Let's use the key on it. Rita's like, Betty disappears. And Rita's like, Betty, where are you? And she goes to look around the house, looks out the door. She can't find her. And I'm like, oh, shit, that's important. Like, I couldn't believe that Betty just disappeared. I missed that the first time. And then she opens the box. She decides to continue on without her. Opens the box. It's like this empty blackness inside.
And the camera, it doesn't zoom. It looks like it falls into it.
It like pushes into the darkness, and then the box falls onto the ground, and then like pans up, and the ant is there, the red-haired ant, and she looks in the room, and there's no Rita, there's no box, there's no money, there's nothing on the bed. And this, but buckle up, because this is where things get crazy.
Because once the blue box is opened, it's kind of like a Pandora's box of,
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, this was at the point in the movie where I felt like I'm going to get like mental whiplash from this movie. Like, what the hell? What is going on? What am I actually supposed to be focusing on? I'm trying to avoid the very obvious cliche question, if you can't tell. But I was very much like, okay, what the hell's happening now?
Yeah. So we see Diane, the dead girl who was in bed. She's not dirty and decayed, and then you see the cowboy come back. He leans in and tells her it's time to get up. And then the camera fades out and back in, and then you see Betty in bed in the same basic pose on her side above the covers. And then there's knocking on the door, and Betty answers the door, but it's obvious that she's in Diane's apartment still. And the girl at the door is the girl in apartment 12 who said that she still has stuff at Diane's place. And so she calls Betty Diane and comes in and gets some stuff. And one of the things she gets is on the coffee table, and she picks it up, and there's a blue key. Not like the blue key we've seen. It's a big skeleton key,
but like an actual key.
It's like
but it's
a blue house
blue.
key, like a normal house key. And then it's so hard to keep track of this movie. And then a lady, before she leaves, she says there were two detectives who came looking for Diane or Betty. I don't know who you are anymore.
Yeah, and they have some weird where it's obvious that like the apartment switch, if that was real, was not a friendly, ooh, why don't we change apartments? I got the feeling like, oh, they don't like each other. Like, was this a bad breakup? There's some animosity because she's like, I put your stuff in the box over there in the corner. And she's very like, their body language, their attitude towards each other is very dismissive, very, I don't like you, you need to go away. It's like, oh, well, this is interesting. So is Betty not real?
Yeah.
Why is she like, she just got called Diane, but she is responding as if that is actually her name. And this is when like, you got to kind of understand like, okay, something we're going into. Here's our spoiler area, folks. The twist ending side of things where you're like, I think we're in that territory, but I don't know what the twist will be or if there actually will be a twist. Will the twist be there is no twist, but it just ends?
As I'm watching it, I'm trying to write in advance of what's happening where I'm like, is it going to... Is she being this thing and it's going to be this? I'm like, is Betty playing the role of this girl's memory of this person? Or I was so confused the whole time.
I was like, is she, who's who? Where did Rita go? What is going on?
And then you have another lesbian sex scene with Rita and Diane now, I think.
Yeah, because Rita's back all of a sudden, and they're like just hanging out topless in the apartment or in the home, and
there's more
Rita's
cupping.
The cupping's so weird. I don't know if it's just because the movie's so weird, but I was like, it's just you know, whatever. Yeah, she like straddles Rita on the couch, and they just like,
you know, like lesbians do.
Sorry, lesbians. We don't need to.
I doubt that's how it is.
Like Hollywood 2001 lesbians do. We'll say that because it's funnier. Yeah, and she's like, Rita's like, we can't do this anymore. We shouldn't do this anymore. And then Betty / Diane is like, grr.
I think that's a direct line. She's like, grr.
If it wasn't, it should have been.
Yeah, she seems to be upset. There's a scene with Adam, the director, and Rita, who may or may not be Rita at this point. I think she may be Camilla, the girl that the mob said that he should cast. It's unclear. But he's like just trying to describe to this guy how he should act in this car. It's the same kind of movie, like 50s style movie.
Yep.
And that's basically the whole scene. He's just describing how he's directing.
Well, yeah, he gets in the car to do he's trying to give stage direction with Camilla, who is now Rita. And it turns out that Betty / Diane is Camilla / Rita's like understudy, assistant lady, co-star, like minor star. She's in the movie somehow, or might be. I don't know.
Possibly.
Anyway, she's
the role. I don't know.
Yeah, she's like watching from the other side of the set as Adam is giving the stage direction in the car with Camilla / Rita. I'm so sorry. Try to keep up with these names. I could really fuck with everyone and start calling her Veronica / Camilla / Rita, but I won't. And like, it turns out that Adam and oh man, I just fucked myself up. Camilla / Rita are genuinely intimate with each other because they start like his stage direction at first sounds and looks so
genuine.
Well done. He's telling him like, hey, just let her fall onto your shoulder. You're going to do it like this. You want to stay relaxed. You don't want to look like you're forcing her. Just let her fall into you. And I was like, that's actually really good stage direction right there. I like how he's doing that. And then they make out and I'm like, that's weird.
Like, we have a movie to shoot. Come on, let's get moving on.
Right. And he's like kicking people off the set. He kicks everyone off the set except for Betty / Diane. Or is it Diane / Betty now?
I think that it's more Diane than Betty now because we've made the leap, the quantum leap. I don't know what's happening. She does seem to be Diane from this point forward, from what I can tell. It's possible Betty never existed. We'll get into that.
She's like watching them make out, and Camilla / Rita like looks at her kind of like, aren't you jealous of that ish? Yeah,
more of like I don't know what it's like. It's like I'm doing this. This is my thing now. And so it really upsets Betty / Diane. That's the main point, is because she goes to her apartment crying, very upset, but while she's crying, she's also masturbating. She's like super diddling herself while she's crying, like violently crying.
So she's
super. That's a technical term, by the way.
But it's not like super diddling. There are slapping sounds during this part, and I was like, this is like, I was watching the movie, right? I'm sitting on the couch watching the movie, and she starts, as you put it, super diddling herself. And I'm like immediately reverting back to when I was a younger boy watching movies with the folks where they tell you to like cover your eyes or, hey, don't watch this.
Be watching
and I'm
this.
like, I don't know that I, and then I could hear, so I know there's like the slappy, you can hear her. because I was not looking at the scene because it felt so weird to me. And then I could still hear the crying with the
slapping.
Slapping.
It's not a thing you see in film often, at least not American film.
Yeah. And I was like, this is so weird. Why is she doing that?
Yeah, I was very confused as well. And I don't know that the movie answers that, but we'll try. So the next scene is Diane is in the car, like in a limo. We're kind of reminiscent of the opening credits. She's in a limo.
In fact, it looks almost identical to the opening scene.
And so Betty/Diane is in this limo. She gets stopped. This guy in the front seat who previously pulled a gun on her is like, "Oh, just hang out." And Rita/ what the fuck's her name?
Camilla, not Veronica.
Rita/ Camilla walks down the hill and gets in the car, and they have like a conversation in the limo. Which I was so confused because I was like, none of this happened in the beginning. Well, I don't know what this means.
Right. And then Camilla/ Veronica.
We need to pick one at this point.
We're sticking with Camilla. We're going to go with alphabetical order. We're going with Camilla.
Never Veronica.
It was never Veronica. We've made too many jokes about Veronica. We're moving past Veronica.
So now it is Camilla. New Camilla. Camilla 2.0.
Camilla.
And Camilla takes Diane up the hill. Like up out of the car.
Yeah, she's like, she tells her like there's a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Or like, hey, there's a different way to go. Yeah. And she takes her to Adam's house for some kind of party that's going on, where Adam is like, "Oh, you should meet my mother," and it's Coco.
Coco, the landlady.
And you're like, wait.
Yeah. I was like, was this always the case? I guess we never asked. It's possible, I guess. It's conceivable.
It's possible. I mean, at this point in the movie, I'm sure your brain was similar to mine, where it was like, okay.
The best way I can describe this movie is that it feels like the whole thing uses dream logic, where this is like a dream, and there are parts that make sense in normal life, but none of it's actually connected. You kind of just jump from thing to thing, and then your brain fills in the gaps. You're like, yeah, that must make sense. Let's not worry about that. And it keeps connecting people that you know, but who are not actually connected, or changing their names into another character. But if you just don't think about it, then it makes sense. That's what this movie is. It doesn't make sense, but if you don't think about it, then it's whatever.
Right. And Diane, are we sticking with Diane now?
She's Diane now.
We're sticking with Diane. So Diane is like super upset because Camilla and Adam are obviously a thing. Yeah. And she's very uncomfortable being at this party. I would be too, especially because at this point you're like, I feel you, girl. Like, I'm just as lost as you are. And I don't know that I'm going to try to put the pieces together. I guess I'll just see what you do.
Well, part of the problem is you still see her as Betty. I connected to her as Betty, as this girl who doesn't really know anything about Hollywood or what's going on. And now she's not Betty. She's Diane, who seems to be a bona fide actress who's invited to all these parties. But you see her as this person, and you're kind of like, oh, you're still vulnerable. You're still new. You shouldn't be, involved in all this stuff. So it's hard to disconnect that quickly from that, or see her as a different person that quickly.
Well, and then I kept getting kind of like taken aback too. Once like she transitions into Diane, she looks like she's methed out. Like she looks cracked out of her skull for a few scenes. And that took me where I'm like, are you using? I don't remember you ever even smoking a cigarette in this movie. Like, what? Why do you look like this? What is happening? But then we go back to, right? Don't we go back to Wiggly's Diner now?
Yeah, basically.
Or am I missing something?
I think after the party is Wiggly's Diner. The third time. And
this is where the guy who was talking about his dream earlier has his millisecond, like second scene, because he's at the register and he looks at Diane and he has that look of like, and then that's it.
So he is the role of the guy he was talking to who was at the register.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah,
I was so confused by how it jumped from the party to the diner. And I was like, and it's Diane. And I was like, are you Betty or are you Diane? Are we going to go back to Betty ever? What's going on? Doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to still be Diane, but she's talking to Jacob, the hitman. I don't know his real name, but he's Jacob from Lost. Talking to the hitman.
Who we forgot to mention. Did you notice in his first scene when he kills the 3 people, his eyes are different color?
No.
I forget what that's called. Yeah, so his eyes are different. Okay. But then at the diner, his eyes are the same.
Oh. Weird. No, I didn't notice that.
I don't know if like it feels like an intentional detail, but again, what?
It seems like an intentional just throw it in to screw with people kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like this movie is a giant trolling. Like it's a 2-hour troll. Yeah. That's how I feel.
But Diane gives Camilla's headshot to the hitman, and he's like, "Oh, don't give it to me out here." And she's like, "Oh, it's a headshot. Everybody has one." And so it seems like she's trying to pay him to kill her.
Which, yeah, she is. She's trying to like put out a hit on Camilla. And then he tells her like, "You got the money?" And I chuckled at this because she's like, "Yeah." And she shows him the money. And he's like, "Once you give that to me, there's no turning back." And she's like, "I know." And then she pays him. He says something about the headshot, but gives no shits about being handed
a bunch of money.
All this money out in the public.
Well, it also seemed like all that money, the purse it was in, looked like Rita's purse from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, how does she get the money that the hitman had? I don't understand. But Diane also gives him a blue key, which I assume is the blue key on the coffee table.
Well, no, she doesn't give him the blue key. He shows it to her, doesn't he? He's like, "You'll know when it's done because I'll put the blue key somewhere." Yeah. Yeah, that's like the confirmation that the job is completed.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then the blue key is sitting on... Because this is where like the timeline is doing this weird like grasshoppery movement where it just kind of jumps wherever it feels like.
I think it's wibbly warbly timey wimey stuff.
Yeah. So it's doing that because then that's where you're like, oh, that was the blue key from her dining table when you find out, or during that first transition from Betty to Diane. Yeah. I hope my hand gestures are giving someone fucking seizures or whiplash because it is me.
You're going to go in Betty epileptic seizures at any point here.
Yep. And she's like, I know. And I feel like I'm missing a scene. Because the witch lady makes her second appearance.
There's like
now, isn't it?
Yeah, Betty has this like, not Betty anymore. Diane is in her apartment and there's like weird flashing lights and she's freaking out. Again, looks a little bit cracked out or something. Maybe just distraught about her decision to kill her friend / lover. I don't know. The old couple from the airport show back up and they do
they're like miniaturized crawling under her door. They do like dancing.
Oh, this is so scary thing.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And then that's like the thing. They're like, oh, we're scaring you. And she's so scared. And then then they actually takes a pill or something.
So, but they do grow. Like they're big all of a sudden. They're like chasing her down the hallway and she's screaming backwards and they're like,
yeah. And then she like kind of passes out on the bed and the room fills with smoke. And that's when like the witch's face kind of comes through the smoke with like fire behind her or something. And she doesn't do anything. She doesn't say anything. She just kind of stares at the camera.
She's just there.
Yeah. And then And then this like just flashes of Betty in like white light, I guess like the very beginning when she's in the dancing thing where she's kind of pale or washed out, and then credits roll.
Well, she grabs the pistol from the drawer.
Yeah.
And she like in a fit of rage shoots herself. And then credits roll.
Yeah. And there's the blue haired lady again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I looked up what the conclusion meant, like what was going on.
Oh, good.
Did you?
No, please tell me.
Okay. Well, first, I want to hear your take first.
My take is, having seen it twice and still having no idea what it means, I imagine that potentially Betty never existed. Betty was a manifestation of Rita's memory. The more I talk about this, the less sense it makes, because I'm advanced in my mind. I'm like, well, if that was really Rita / Camilla, how does she picture it? So Camilla and Diane had a relationship. They were actresses. I'm going backwards to front. Camilla and Rita were Camilla and Diane were actresses.
Yeah, Camilla and Diane.
They were actresses who may or may not have been lovers, may or may not have been competing for roles. Camilla moved on because she was cast by Adam at the behest of the mob for some reason. We don't really know why the mob was so intent on her being the girl, but she was the girl. Good for her. So she gets casted, gets in a relationship with the director, gets super successful. Betty?
No, Diane.
Thank you. Diane goes and is like super upset because not only does she lose her relationship, but she's not being successful as an actress, ends up killing herself. I don't know where the car accident happens. I don't know where the first 2/3 of the movie happen. I don't know anything. The more I talk, the realize the less I know. Please tell me what's going on.
So I looked it up because I was like, okay, I feel like Diane was real.
Yeah.
I feel like Camilla was the real version of Rita. I think the name Rita legitimately did come from the Rita Hayworth poster.
Yeah.
That
was completely manufactured, as she didn't remember her name because she was in an accident.
So I view it, the way I took it before I looked it up, was pretty similar to what they said. I took it as like a flashing memory before she actually dies at the end. Before Diane actually dies at the end, like the gunshot went off and everything we saw in the movie was just everything like rushing through her mind.
Okay.
Like final kind of thoughts sort of thing. And then I looked it up. The whole movie is a dream that she like wakes up. It's like a nightmare. So Diane was the real version. Camilla was the real version. And Diane came out to Hollywood to be an aspiring actress, but Hollywood ruined her and like it did not go well for her. And so she spiraled out of control while Camilla's career took off. Okay. And out of jealous rage, she did hire a hitman to kill Camilla. And then the whole movie is like kind of a dream nightmare sequence of hers that she wakes up from at the very end and out of a fit of rage kills herself.
Okay.
Which I was like, and this was where I read like, oh, the movie's a dream. That was the moment I was like, wasn't this kind of like a thing? I mean, the twist endings we've talked about were a thing in like the late 90s through like the first 10 years of the 2000s. But like everything being a dream wasn't that also?
Yeah, it was like
part of the twisty kind of thing.
Oh, it was actually just a dream. That was definitely a thing.
Yeah. And I was like, this is not the kind of movie I ever remember hearing anything being like ever remotely hinted at that it was all a dream. And I'm kind of shocked at that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kind of proud of audiences for not spoiling that.
Did they not spoil it, or did they have no idea? Because I could see most audiences having
it could be a combination of both. It could also be a combination of those two, along with we didn't have social media, so people couldn't go online and spoil it. But I was
we didn't have
watching
social
this
media really for The Sixth Sense or whatever. That was 99 or whatever. But yeah, I imagine most people are like, that was weird. Well, I'm not going to talk about it or see it, or again, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I have no idea it was a dream. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it could be all of those things. But I was like, either way, I mean,
yeah,
I don't remember ever even hearing about the ending's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this movie had a lot of publicity, a lot of press around it, because I know it was real popular around the Academy Awards, wasn't it? It even got nominated, didn't it?
It did, I think, for Best Director. Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember I knew the name. I saw a lot of press, a lot of interest, but didn't know anything else about it.
Yeah, I remember it being just a big movie.
Yeah.
Watching it, for as much as I've heard of it, for it being so big,
yeah,
I was kind of shocked that it looked so cheaply made. But like I said, when you find out it had a TV budget in 2001,
yeah,
and then a foreign, because Studio Canal is not an American production company, or at least it wasn't back then. I don't know where they come from. It was nominated for Best Director. Yeah, you were right.
Cool.
Okay. But I know it's been listed as one of the greatest films ever made. Roger Ebert has it on his all-time best. It's on so many best lists.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw a best list. I think it was BBC that had a bunch of critics rated it like one of the best movies, the best movie of the 20th century or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I mean, having watched it, I would argue that.
Yeah. So bottom line, did you like it?
Dude, okay. So I wrote this note at the start of this episode.
Okay.
When we were both can't figure out where I stand with this movie.
Yeah.
Right? It has a lot of aspects to it that I generally enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I like kind of twisty films. I like plots where you're trying to figure it out, piece it together yourself the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I like that stuff. I mean, Twin Peaks, not the best show I ever saw, but it was entertaining enough because it was so weird that I kept going back to be like, are you ever going to tell me what's going on? So I feel suckered into watching Twin Peaks. I kind of feel suckered into watching Mulholland Drive as well.
Yeah.
So my note is, I feel like this is, in terms of our show name and our rating scale.
Yeah.
I feel like this is kind of a whiskey dick kind of movie.
Where it just never gets going?
Well, where you want to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
You just can't get there.
Yeah. That's accurate.
And I would say it would be at the what did I rate Akira?
7 o'clock. It was very low.
Yeah, so I'd put Mulholland Drive maybe just under Akira, primarily because with Akira, I feel like that is a movie I will grow to probably really love.
Yeah.
After watching it more times, because I want to watch it more.
Mm-hmm.
With Mulholland Drive, I don't really see myself watching this movie again.
That was going to be my second question. Do you want to watch it again?
I feel if I was hanging out with people and someone happened to be watching it, which is such a improbable scenario, but I would not argue or be like, oh, this movie sucks. I'd probably oh yeah, this weird ass film. And I'd probably sit down and watch it then.
Yeah.
If it was an accidental viewing.
Mm-hmm. It'd probably be
But-
more interesting to watch it with other people and be like, isn't that
Yeah.
weird?
Yeah. But seeking the movie out by itself, I don't know. You mentioned it earlier, like, do I need to watch more David Lynch films or more of his stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to if his stuff is continuously like this.
Or do I need to watch less?
Yeah. I do kind of want to watch his version of Dune because it has so much, like, you hear about it so much, not necessarily in a good light. I hear a lot of cheesiness of his version of Dune, so I kind of wanted to watch it just for the cheesiness.
Yeah. I know Dune fans of the books are not in love with it, but
Yeah.
I found a recent love with Dune watching the movie, so I just want anything Dune. I'll give it a try. Why not?
But yeah, so my rating would be, it's not very high.
Yeah, that's accurate. I did not like it. I don't think I would watch it again. It is, I don't think that a movie should get a ton of credit for just being weird. Like,
Yeah.
if being weird is all you have going for it, I think that's easy to do. And so it's interesting to like talk to people about. And if there are people that love it, I'm very interested to know what gravitates you towards it. But it seems like just a weird movie to me. There were parts, and maybe it was mostly the conversation with the hitman and that long-haired guy before he kills him. It's just such a weird conversation that I was like, this is kind of like what's the guy that made The Room?
Oh, Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, this is kind of like what Tommy Wiseau wishes The Room would be, I think, in a weird way, where it's like it does make sense in a more normal way, and it is a movie that a bona fide director with bona fide actors have made, but it's at the end of the day, it's just weird and it doesn't make a ton of sense. And you have to subscribe to the fact that it's a dream, and a ton of it doesn't connect and a ton of it doesn't make sense. There's a couple of things that I think if you wanted to, you could make this movie mean anything you wanted, really, because there's so little structure to it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I feel like it gets a lot of attention just because it's so weird.
Yeah.
Kind of like Donnie Darko. I feel Donnie Darko, when we were in high school, I mean, that was the movie every high schooler felt like obligated. You had to watch Donnie Darko. You had to love Donnie Darko.
And the ones that loved it the most were always the like weird goth kids that were like, oh,
right,
this is weird. I'll like this.
Look how edgy I am for the sake of being edgy.
Yeah.
And then you watch Donnie Darko and you're like, I think this movie is just weird for the sake of wanting to be weird.
Yeah.
But it's not a necessarily coherent story. Sorry, Donnie Darko fans. I own Donnie Darko. I haven't watched it since high school, but I still have it.
I've never seen it. I've seen memes from it. I meant to watch it just because of that.
Maybe that should be another one that we do someday. But just because I want to hear your opinion on Donnie Darko.
I am interested in watching it. I think we might need a normal movie in between that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I feel like Mulholland Drive, and I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, if you loved it, cool.
Yeah, I don't care.
Nothing against you. I just, obviously it did not strike the chord for Jake and I.
Yeah.
I
saw a comment on IMDb that was like, I watch most movies 1 or 2 times, but I've seen this movie 40 times and I just continue watching it. And I was like, why? Is it because you don't understand it? You have to? Maybe you love it, and that's great.
Why?
If you love it, that's great. And I could see it connecting to certain people. But
I just I got the sense throughout the movie that it was like, I mean, you also brought it up of, is this just how all of David Lynch's stuff is? Is he just trying to be so weird that that's his shtick? Kind of like Tim Burton with the gothic aesthetic, or, you know, is that just what they do?
Right.
I haven't watched enough of his stuff to say yes, but I did watch Twin Peaks, so I feel like I can say, yep, that seems like his thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think Mulholland Drive deserved all the hype just because it was so weird. I've seen weirder movies that had a more coherent twist or story to it.
Right.
So,
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
But yeah, so I feel kind of bad because our first two fan suggestion films, neither of us were very like, yeah!
Well, just because I didn't love the movie doesn't mean I didn't love making the episode about it.
True. Making the episode was a lot of fun. And I know it was a lot of fun constantly being like, what the fuck is going on? What? And I was hoping so much, like, I hope Jake was somewhere on the same page with me on this.
Yeah, I had no idea because we didn't text each other at all about this movie this week. And I was like, maybe he loves it. Maybe he has the answers. That was my number one hope. I was like, maybe he gets it and I can ask him questions. And then when you were like, I don't know, I was like, oh, great. Now we're on this. We're both on the same page. But yeah, it's pretty funny that we landed in the same place.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, if you haven't watched it and we spoiled it for you, I feel you could still go watch it and still not quite know what's going on.
Yeah.
So let us know if that's the case.
I don't think we spoiled anything because I think people will be like, I don't understand what that means. There's no way it's that confusing. I'll just watch it. And then you watch it and it's beat for beat exactly what we said and it still doesn't make any sense.
Just remember that opening. You are watching the right movie.
Yeah.
It does start off with weird Photoshop overlay.
Yeah. Cut
bad
out.
Lighting.
On a purple background. Dancing.
That is the start of the movie.
Yeah.
You have found the right thing.
Yeah. So but if you love it, I do want to hear from you. Let us know what attracts you to it. No judgment. I'm just curious, really.
Yeah, if you have more in-depth answers for us regarding what certain things throughout the film mean, if anything, let us know.
Yeah, we got some interesting ones about Akira, which helped a lot. People were like, oh, this means this, and in this culture, this means this, and the bike actually serves this purpose. And we're like, oh, that's great. I love that. Please share more of that.
Yeah, so give us insights, because obviously we're just a couple schmucks who thought they knew films really well, but these last two fan versions...
I just did a little light Googling to see what things meant. Don't really know.
So thank you. If you loved it, let us know why and all that good stuff.
Yeah, at Movie Boners on Facebook and Instagram. Comment or DM, we don't mind either way.
Yep. Let us know.
Love
comment on the YouTube videos. Those are actually a lot of fun. Just because then other people can see that stuff and join the movie conversation.
Yeah,
follow us on TikTok and all that stuff. I did not do a fun tidbit. I need to do that still.
Uh-oh.
Well, Eternals was so long. Thank you to the previews, which never fucking ended.
Yeah. Previews are out of control. There was
out of control, man.
20 minutes of previews for Bond. A lot of previews for Dune. Sounds like there's a lot.
There was a ton of previews for Eternals. It was like a half hour worth of them. You're like, just move on. When your movie is over 2 hours, your previews should be less than like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. You would think they would want to get people out of there and get new people in so they could sell more tickets, but
apparently they're just loading up on trailers. Yeah. But that's a different topic.
There's a lot of movies coming out. They've held a lot back. So
Well, just like last week, we have not decided on our next episode, so we can't even tease the next one.
Oh yeah.
But keep your eyes out. We'll try and have that locked down either tomorrow night, well, when this releases, or Monday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll let you know on Facebook or Instagram what is next, so you can prepare. If there's anything that you need to watch, otherwise it'll just be non-spoilery stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Do you got anything else?
I don't think so. That was a wild ride. I don't know where we ended up, but
I feel like we ended up right where we started. No answers, headaches, but we laughed a lot because it's
maybe
so
that
absurd.
was the point.
Maybe.
That was the message. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate you. See you next
See ya.
time. No.